On July 16, 2026, at approximately 1:50 in the morning, Memphis police responded to a shooting at a home in the 3000 block of Travis Road in the Walker Homes neighborhood of Southwest Memphis. When officers arrived, they found 20-year-old Rodderius Morton lying in the front yard. He had a single gunshot wound to the back of his head. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Standing nearby was 36-year-old Kendra Scott. According to the arrest affidavit, she was still holding a black Smith and Wesson handgun. When officers asked what happened, Scott gave them a short answer. She told police she came home and found a man hiding under her children's bed. She said she did what she had to do. Scott is now charged with first-degree murder, but the question at the center of this case is whether a mother who found a 20-year-old man hiding under her 13-year-old daughter's bed in the middle of the night crossed the line from protection into something the law cannot justify. Kendra Scott, born September 23, 1989, lived in the Walker Homes neighborhood of Southwest Memphis with her 3 daughters. Her 13-year-old was the oldest. According to a fundraiser later set up by Scott's sister, Kendra Scott, the family was close. But according to the arrest affidavit, Scott had strong views about boys being inside her home. Her teenage daughter later told investigators that her mother had previously warned that if she ever caught a boy inside the house, she would, in her words, put a hole in him. As for the victim, Rodderius Morton was 20 years old. Investigators have not publicly disclosed much about his background. What the affidavit does establish is how he ended up inside the home that night. According to the arrest affidavit and statements from a juvenile witness inside the home, Morton arrived at the residence at approximately 1 in the morning on July 16th. He entered through the back door. Scott's 13-year-old daughter had invited him inside while her mother was away. About 30 to 40 minutes later, around 1:30 to 1:40 a.m., Scott returned home. A juvenile witness told police that Scott began banging on the front door and yelling. She was asking who was at her house. Eventually, the girl opened the door and let her mother inside. That is when Scott discovered Morton hiding underneath her daughter's bed. According to the affidavit, the teenager became frightened after realizing her mother was carrying a firearm. Investigators pieced together what happened next using statements from the juvenile witness, a neighbor, and Scott herself. After finding Morton under the bed, Scott ordered him to leave. Morton gathered his belongings and started walking toward the front door. He was not armed. According to the affidavit, there was a verbal argument between Scott and Morton as he moved through the house. Scott was yelling at him to get out. Morton made it to the front porch. The juvenile witness told police she then heard a single gunshot. A neighbor told investigators he heard banging and came outside. He saw Scott standing near Morton's body in the front yard. She was still holding the handgun. According to his statement, Scott was repeating the same words over and over. She kept saying she shot him. That is an important detail. Do you think the fact that Morton was already leaving the home changes how this case should be viewed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Investigators recovered 2 key pieces of physical evidence from the scene. On the front porch, they found 1 spent shell casing. They also recovered a black Smith and Wesson handgun. Both were documented in the arrest affidavit and court records. The location of the shell casing is significant. It was found on the front porch, consistent with witness statements that the shooting occurred as Morton was exiting the home. The gunshot wound itself was to the back of Morton's head. He was found in the front yard. According to the affidavit, investigators found no indication that Morton was armed or that he had threatened Scott or anyone else in the home at the time of the shooting. A retired law enforcement officer and self-defense trainer named Buddy Smith later told Action News 5 that the facts described in the affidavit do not appear to satisfy the legal standard for justified use of deadly force. He noted that in Tennessee, you are allowed to protect people in your residence when someone breaks in to commit a violent felony. But in this case, the affidavit does not allege that Morton threatened anyone. Those facts, Smith said, will likely be important issues for the court and ultimately the jury. Scott was detained at the scene and transported to the Memphis Police Department for questioning. She was formally charged with 2 felonies. The first is first-degree murder under Tennessee Statute 39-13-202. The second is employment of a firearm during the commission of a dangerous felony under Tennessee Statute 39-17-13-24. The Memphis Police Department confirmed the charges in an official press release. Scott was initially held without bond at the Shelby County Jail. On July 17th, she had a video arraignment before Judge Sheila B. Rienfro. Her case was continued. On July 21st, Scott appeared in court for a bail review hearing. The judge set her bond at $100,000. She was ordered to stay away from the victim's family. Her next court date is scheduled for August 3rd. Scott's defense attorney, Blake Ballin, spoke to reporters after the hearing. He described the situation as the worst nightmare of any parent of a 13-year-old girl. Ballin told that his team is still waiting on key evidence, including doorbell camera footage and the autopsy report. He said he does not yet know whether there was a physical altercation or even whether the shooting could have been an accidental discharge. He also raised the possibility that Tennessee's Stand Your Ground law could factor into the defense, though he said it was too early to determine that. It is important to note that Scott, like anyone charged with a crime, is presumed innocent unless proven guilty in a court of law. Prosecutors will need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that her actions met the elements of first-degree murder under Tennessee law. This brings up a critical legal question that has divided people across the country. Under Tennessee law, a person facing a genuine threat of death, serious bodily injury, or grave sexual abuse has no duty to retreat before using deadly force. But that standard requires a reasonable belief of imminent danger. Based on the affidavit, Morton was unarmed and was already leaving the home when the fatal shot was fired. How a jury weighs those facts could define this case. The biggest unresolved issue is what exactly happened in the final seconds on that front porch. The juvenile witness said she heard one gunshot after Morton and Scott were outside. The neighbor saw Scott standing over the body holding the gun, but no one has publicly described whether there was a physical confrontation between Scott and Morton in those final moments. Defense attorney Ballin has specifically pointed to this gap. He said he does not know if there was a scuffle. He does not know whether the gun discharged accidentally. The doorbell camera footage and the autopsy report could answer those questions. Until that evidence is reviewed, the precise circumstances of the shooting remain unclear. Here is what we know. On July 16, 2026, Kendra Scott, a 36-year-old Memphis mother, came home in the early morning hours and found a 20-year-old man hiding under her 13-year-old daughter's bed. That man, Rodderius Morton, had been invited in by the teenager. Scott confronted Morton, ordered him to leave, and followed him to the front porch. Morton was shot once in the back of the head. He was unarmed. He died in the front yard. Scott is charged with first-degree murder and a firearm felony. What do you think the outcome should be? Share your thoughts respectfully in the comments below. If this is the kind of deep-dive true crime content you want more of, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new case. A 20-year-old man is dead, a mother of 3 is in jail, and a 13-year-old girl is left carrying the weight of what happened inside her own home.